What happened to the medium named Wellesley Paul shocked him so deeply that even he, who had witnessed countless frightening paranormal phenomena, was terrified. Never in his life had he experienced such intense fear. The medium couldn't understand whether he was losing his mind or, on the contrary, if he was glimpsing a side of existence he had never even imagined. What mattered most was that, after this experience, Wellesley Paul completely changed his view on death and realized that the afterlife not only exists but is vastly different from what most people believe. Everything there was far from what he had previously imagined. It all began with what seemed like an ordinary and innocent event. On Monday, March 12, 1917, Wellesley Paul was strolling along the seashore when he suddenly felt someone watching him. The sensation of an intense gaze drilling into his back was so real that he turned around, but there was not a soul in sight. Despite the empty surroundings, the unsettling feeling didn't fade. On the contrary, from that moment on, it clung to him persistently. Upon returning home, Wellesley sat down to write a business letter, and that's when the real strangeness began. Something that made his blood run cold. As he prepared to write the first line, his hand suddenly jerked uncontrollably and began moving across the paper without his consent. He tried to stop it with all his willpower but failed. It felt as if another force was controlling his hand. When he finally read what had been written, his panic deepened, and he trembled with fear. The words on the paper read, "On one of the August evenings, I died." Thus began the incredible story of correspondence between Wellesley Paul and an entity from beyond, a story whose authenticity would later be confirmed by many credible witnesses. In his youth, Wellesley Paul had decided to devote his life to studying paranormal phenomena. Eventually, he became a leading expert in the field and authored several books on the subject. However, the most famous of his works was the one based on his correspondence with the spirit of a deceased soldier who dictated messages from the afterlife. The soldier was Thomas Downing, a former schoolteacher from a small town on England's east coast. In 1915, he was drafted into the military, and after 9 months of service, he was killed in France. But what compelled this soldier to contact a medium? What crucial information did he wish to convey to the living? His first message was clear and striking. People must understand that physical death is nothing. In his communications, Downing emphasized that no matter how much the living mourn their lost loved ones, they must realize that separation is not permanent. To illustrate what happens in the first moments after death, the soldier shared his personal experience. A soldier's first glimpse beyond the veil. Thomas Downing recounted, "That ill-fated August evening, I was about to start my guard duty when I suddenly heard a whistle behind me. A moment later, I felt a powerful blow to my neck, and in the same instant, I found myself outside my own body. My soul had left it but remained nearby, as if tethered by an invisible thread. Because of this, he was able to witness his comrades picking up his body and carrying it through the maze of trenches to seek medical aid. They assumed he was merely unconscious but still alive. The deceased soldier noted that everything felt so real, yet he felt completely detached. For a moment, he believed it was all just a nightmare and that he would wake up soon. But, unfortunately, the awakening never came. When doctors finally examined his body, Downing realized he felt no pain. The realization dawned he was dead. As soon as he accepted this fact, an unknown force seemed to suspend all his thoughts and emotions. Darkness and oblivion followed, akin to a dreamless sleep. Yet he remained aware that he was not dreaming. He existed in a state of nowhere and never. When the soldier finally emerged from this void, he discovered that his physical body was gone. This realization brought complete acceptance of his death. But oddly, it no longer frightened him. Instead, curiosity took hold. What comes next? In one of his messages conveyed through Wellesley Paul, Downing described, "I felt free and light, as if I were still in my body, but it was now ethereal, not physical. It looked nearly the same, but it felt no pain and required neither food nor drink. He then sensed his consciousness expanding, revealing astonishing secrets about life after death. Determined to help the living, he shared these revelations to warn against mistakes that could make one's afterlife difficult and filled with suffering. Give hope to good-hearted people, assuring them that death is not the end and that they will be rewarded for their noble deeds. The interruption and a shocking reunion. However, the transmissions suddenly stopped. It later became clear that the inhabitants of the afterlife disapproved of revealing the secrets of their world. The souls of the deceased warned Thomas Downing against excessive openness, and he complied. Only the messages he had already delivered were published. Yet, several years later, the soldier reestablished contact with Wellesley Paul. The reason? In the afterlife, he encountered the very person who had killed him on the battlefield. What was truly astounding was that this man, before his own death, had read the book containing Downing's messages while lying in a hospital bed, dying from an incurable disease. The book had helped him come to terms with his inevitable end. He made a promise. If everything described in the book proved true and life after death indeed existed, he would find the one who had delivered those messages from the other side. At that moment, he didn't know that one of the book's authors was the very man he had killed. A purpose renewed and the land of mists. Everything the dying soldier had read turned out to be true. He fulfilled his promise, which so profoundly moved Thomas Downing that he decided to resume his messages to Wellesley Paul, believing their content held immeasurable value for the living. Through these renewed communications, Wellesley Paul learned about the land of mists, where souls burdened by sin reside. There, they undergo harsh trials and suffering, purging themselves of the darkness they accumulated in life. However, they are not left to suffer alone. Advanced souls, radiating the light of love, guide them out of the darkness, illuminating the path toward redemption. Even in the deepest shadows, one must see the way forward to return to true life. Thomas Downing revealed that helping such souls was now his mission in the afterlife, his job, as he put it. When exhausted, he would retreat to his home, surrounded by a beautiful garden, easily created by the power of thought. The purity of one's thoughts determined the beauty of what they could create. The brighter the soul, the more magnificent the world it could manifest. Interestingly, Wellesley Paul fully understood how fantastical these messages might seem. Unlike many other mediums who confidently claimed contact with the dead, he humbly admitted, "Can such messages be trusted? I believe there can never be absolute proof in this field. Sadly, I cannot conclusively prove the authenticity of the soldier's messages, not even to myself. But believe me, my communication with him felt so real that it seemed as though he was standing right beside me. Such honesty was rare and spoke volumes." Ultimately, Wellesley Paul believed his mission was not to convince anyone of the afterlife's existence, but to spark interest in a realm of being that humanity often ignores out of fear. After all, everyone will face death someday. And for those who stubbornly deny the possibility of existence beyond the physical world, the transition could be far more challenging. A new era of spiritual awareness. Wellesley Paul once said, "When we realize that life continues beyond the physical realm, a new, more spiritual era will dawn. The fear of death will vanish, not because people will seek to escape life, but because they will begin to live more responsibly, understanding the consequences of their actions." He emphasized that his goal was never to force belief in the afterlife, but to help people understand that earthly life holds greater meaning than commonly assumed. It is not confined to the physical plane but continues in a realm where, quite possibly, our souls will one day journey. Do you agree with this medium's perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments, like the video, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with more captivating stories. Thank you for watching. Wishing you all long life and peace.